Hola chicas, welcome back. We are your hosts Dulce
and Ellie, and today we're answering the question, what has kept us chasing our dreams?
So I think this is a topic that is very dear and near to our heart because like we love to talk about, we are on a life journey where we just keep trying to better ourselves and the things that we're doing. Of course, we're doing this podcast, and I think it's safe to say, you know, on both of our ends that we have really big dreams and hopes for this podcast that we won't go too much into detail, but it's basically a hobby and a passion of ours that we're trying to turn into a business.
Right.
And with like anything, especially when you're trying to turn hobbies into passions and hobbies into a business path, I think a lot of people get discouraged because it's not an easy path. It's not an easy thing to do. There's so many ups and downs. The workload is very heavy, and it's very hard for people around you to believe in you. And I also think that's a huge factor because it can cause you to get discouraged.
Right.
So it's keeping that motivation of following your dreams, keeping that motivation of following your passion, of not giving up, staying motivated, being inspired. I mean, there's just so many things that come with it. And so we just want to talk about the things that have helped us because we have been on a journey of bettering ourselves for a while, but we haven't been on a journey of turning our passion into a career for that long.
Right. I think the podcast itself motivated me to do everything else that I've also wanted to do. So I mean, we started doing this podcast for a little over a year already, basically.
I think the very first business meeting we had was in October of last year. And I believe the first time we met to really talk about, when we sat down, what are we naming it? What is our logo going to be? All the logistics of it. I think it was about exactly a year ago. It was in November. I just don't remember exactly what date. But yeah, we started this journey a year ago.
Yeah. And it's come a long way for being a year. So we're pretty happy with it,
For sure.
Yeah. And to be fair, I know that this is something that we're trying to turn into our jobs and everything, but it really doesn't feel like work because it's something that you actually enjoy doing.
Right. But with that being said, I do think that has come at an expense as well.
Right.
That has been a struggle within itself because it does feel like fun. We are doing it together. It feels more like a hobby, right? Like a passion of ours. We're just sitting here, we're talking. And we actually had a meeting not too long ago where we sat each other down and we were like, it's not going to work out if we keep going the way we're going, to where we're just basically treating it like a passion, like a hobby that you do on the side, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not our goal at the end of the day. So we had to sit down and say, if we want this to be a legitimate business, we have to treat it like a legitimate business.
Right.
And so we had to put ourselves basically on an hourly basis, if you want to say it that way, like a job. We're meeting these exact days, and from this time to this time, put it aside, don't plan anything because we're working.
Right.
And I think that was a struggle in the beginning, and we actually didn't realize that's what we were doing until not too long ago, where it was I don't think we're taking this as serious as we should.
Yeah. We really needed to do a reality check.
Yes.
That's what we need. We need to be realistic about it. And even though it's fun, it also needs to be some serious aspect to it, because if you also don't take it seriously, it's not going to have what it needs to grow either.
For sure.
Yes. If you're only doing it as just a hobby, I mean, of course, a lot of people do their hobbies 24/7 sometimes because they're just very passionate about it and they really enjoy it that way. But of course, life also gets in the way. So there will be times they'll take a break for a month, maybe 2, and that's just not realistic whenever you're seeing it on a business aspect. You can't put a business on hold for a month or two,
It just doesn't work that way. And if it does, it's just not going to grow the way you want it to. And I think another aspect that has been very difficult for us is that we are doing something where we're putting ourselves in a position where we're very vulnerable and very open to the public. We're putting our face out there. We're putting our lives out there. We're putting our struggles out there because, that's what we love to talk about. We love to talk about our struggles. And it's really not an easy thing to do sometimes. And I think it comes easier for some more than others. But I think that also has been a journey in itself.
Right. Yeah. Because if we're going to talk about all those things, of course you also have to do the work to even go through all of that. So I feel like it's a lot of work on both ends. So a lot of work in the background, but also a lot of work in the podcast itself, trying to talk about it too. Of course, like here it's only like me and Dulce, but in reality, like there's so many of you watching us, so, and we, even though we don't get to see everybody's faces, at the end of the day a lot of people get to see ours,
right? And you guys, we give you a sneak peek into our lives, into our struggles, into the things we've had to go through. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because at the end of the day, our goal, or one of our biggest goals, is to create a community. Our goal is to help the people within our community, and being able to show you guys that side of us really is like special to us, because we know that you guys will feel connected to us. And once we grow this community, we want to create a platform for all of our fellow Latinas to have to go and ask for advice, ask for questions, feel heard, create a conversation, feel empowered. I mean, we just have a really big
vision.
Yes, that we know, I know we'll get there, but talking about, how we have stayed motivated to do all of this, what do you think would be one of the biggest things for you?
I think that, well, one, having the fact that we're doing this together is definitely a huge one. For sure. I could tell you right now, had this just been like by myself, I probably would have taken a pause for a lot longer than like a month or two. I'd probably take like a 6 months, a year, couple years pause,
Yeah,
because I have done that on my other personal things that I've wanted to grow. I've taken a pause for years on some of them, or months, and I feel like this would have been one of those.
Yeah,
but because we have each other here, it's like if I'm not motivated but you are, it's like we feed into each other's motivation.
For sure.
And so like if you're uplifted but I'm not really, it's just like I kind of pick up on your vibes. And then if I'm uplifted and you're kind of down, you pick up on my vibes.
Right.
So then it's like we balance each other out. Like we uplift each other.
Right. Because of course there are times where you're just not feeling it. You're like, I don't want to do it today. And when you're doing your own thing, when you're wanting to do, basically when you're wanting to be the boss, because that's the whole point, right? We're wanting to not have to work for somebody else. We're wanting to have full control of everything we're doing. And when you have that power, it is so easy for you to say, oh, maybe I won't do it today because, you're not going to get fired. You're the one in charge. But it's actually the opposite. You have to put in all the work. It's 24/7 in the beginning. You have to do so much heavy lifting in the beginning. And I think that's where a lot of people get discouraged, because you do have to, and that's with any sort of business, right. Whether it be like you're opening up a restaurant, you're selling merch, you're providing a service, whatever it may be. It's so easy to get discouraged because you put in so much work and you really don't see any payback for a while, honestly. I know for, let's say, restaurants, you hear a lot of restaurants closing within the first 5 years. A lot of restaurants don't make it because they're not able to make that profit. If anything, they're just like breaking even, but they're not able to see those fruits. And it's hard because at the end of the day, it is life. You need money to survive, especially how things are right now.
In this economy.
Don't even get me started. But it is super difficult for you to just be like, this is too hard. I give it my all, but aren't getting anything back. It's so much easier if I just go get a 9 to 5. At least I know I have a secured check.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, of course, it is way more secure. It's more, it's there. You're going to have it every 2 weeks, every week, however you get paid, but it's there. When you're just starting a business, it's so inconsistent. I mean, so inconsistent. You can have like a phenomenal month where you're like, we got this. And then the next month, like $12 or something, like nothing basically. And it's like, oh shit, what happened? And I feel like it's a really scary thing to go through,
And that itself is discouraging because like in the beginning, you could be like, okay, you're doing good, right? And then there comes a month where you're not doing that great. And you're like, oh shit, like, is this really working? Like, is it really worth it?
Is it worth it?
It makes you kind of like doubt yourself and doubt the dream that you have or the vision that you have.
Right.
You're like, okay, maybe this isn't that great of an idea. It'll also be so much easier for me to just hop back, get my 9 to 5 back,
Yeah, and then just do this on the side.
Right.
And especially because it's so embedded in us. Like, whenever you hear of people going to school for, like, let's say art is like the number one thing that people love to make fun of. And it's like, oh, how are you gonna make a living? Oh, you're gonna be broke. And even though there may be truth to it, I do think a lot of people back down from following that passion because it's just so hard to make a living out of it, in the beginning. But once you set your footprint to where it is that you're wanting to do, you can do it. And I think it's really important what you said, that like we have each other. And even if you're doing a passion, a hobby on your own, get a support group.
For sure. And
whether that may be your partner, your parent, a sibling, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, a friend. And even if you don't have anybody in your life that you know of, reach out.
Right.
Somebody on social media is wanting to do the same thing. You can find people on Reddit. You can find people on Facebook groups, Instagram. Like, you can find your group of people. And even if you don't know them in person, even if they're across the world.
Yeah, you can still build a connection with them online. Like, you won't see them face to face for the most part. I mean, maybe one day y'all fly around and see each other. But it's still helpful to have somebody that you can talk to. And not just someone who wants to support you, but sees your vision. Because that difference makes
all the difference.
Yeah. So, like, because someone who, of course, you're going to have people surrounding you that are going to be supporting you and everything. But whenever they don't see your vision, it's very different because they can be supportive. And like, yeah, you can do it. But there's a difference between being supportive and also being encouraging, because whenever they don't see your vision, they don't know what to encourage. Right. So then they don't encourage anything. They just support it. Like, yeah, you can do it. But I mean, that's pretty much it.
Right.
They don't help you bounce off ideas like, oh, you can do this, or oh, you can do that. Or maybe if you're stuck someplace, I'm like, oh, maybe you can do it this way or try it the other way. Or like, hey, this helped me. What if this helps you? Kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very different dynamic of having someone support you and someone who actually sees your vision,
And that's why it's important to stay within the community of what you're wanting to do. So like, let's say you're an aspiring artist who paints. More than likely, it'd be best for you if you find a fellow painter, because not only can they encourage you, they can also he se me fue. They can encourage you but then they also know the exact struggles that you're going through. And I feel like that's a big one, because whenever it's someone that's not into what you're doing, they don't fully comprehend what it is that you have to do, all the things you have to give up, all the things that you're having to work on. Because especially now with social media, a lot of people are putting their business out there on social media, and it looks so easy.
It is. I mean, it does. Sorry.
Because it's not. Like, when we first started this, we thought it was just gonna be hit a button, record, edit, and then we're good.
Yeah. I really thought editing would probably take us maybe like 20-30 minutes.
Literally.
No, bitch. It takes us maybe like 6 hours.
Half a day.
Minimum.
If we're not having technical difficulties, because we always have some shit going on or some shit coming down. Like,
it's a whole work day. It's a whole 9 to 5 just for the editing portion,
right?
Not to mention everything else that goes on behind the scenes, the planning, all of the other different things, because apart from like just the episodes, we're creating a whole bunch of other things.
We're trying to create a whole brand,
right? It's like
it's a lot. Much. Sometimes it feels like 24 hours in a day is not enough.
I know.
And it's not just that. We also add the stress of when people are doing this, they still have their 9 to 5, because you still have to make a living while you get things up and going. And so it's like, where do I even find the time? Where do I even find the energy? Because I get it, especially like, let's say you're a parent, you go to your 9 to 5, but your day started 3 hours before then. Like, you got up, you got your kids' lunch ready, you got your kids ready for school, you got them to school, now you're at work, now you're doing your work, now you're getting off of work, going to get your kids, now you're having to come home and still you have to feed them, bathe them, maybe do homework. Like, I get it, it's so much. And so finding that energy, that inspiration, it's hard. It is. But I think what has helped me, at least on that aspect, is taking a look back and realizing that life is going to be hard no matter what. You know what I mean? And so it's, do I want to be alive and happy, or do I want to be alive and miserable doing something I absolutely hate just to pay the bills? And I, for myself, because I know there are people out there that can do it and not necessarily be miserable, but they're like, okay, maybe I'm not passionate about this job, but I can do it and I'm okay doing it. I'm happy with what I have. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that life down. Like, that works for so many people. And I'm kind of a little jealous, not gonna lie. But for me, I find myself being so miserable when I am working a typical job, because I just always aspired to have my own thing. You know what I mean? And so no way do I ever look at it and I'm okay, you know, as far as like content, happy. And it's not about the money, because I've asked myself, what if I find a job, work myself, you know, up the ladder and make $200K a year one day, you know? And I'm like, but even yet, I would be miserable, because it's not about the money. It's about doing something that I enjoy. Like, I don't want to get up every day and being like, fuck,
I know,
gotta go to work again, or I don't want to go, like just dreading even going, because I've lived like that for a while. And this is the first time, well, not the first time, but the first time in a while where I get up and I'm super excited to like get the day going, because
like, oh my gosh, I get to do this, or I get to do that. You know, like we get to work on this.
Like today is recording day. I was looking forward to it, you know, and to have that fire within you, that in itself is super motivating,
for sure.
And so if you have something like that in your life, that you just get up, you know, every day, or you know, when you know you're going to do that thing and you're just so fired up, you're so excited, you're so happy, try to find a way to do that. Because in the world we live in now, it is hard, but also very easy to find a way to turn your passion, your hobby into a living.
Right. You can monetize your hobbies at this point. I mean, back then, social media wasn't really a thing like that, and now it is. And social media literally puts your name out there, puts your brand out there. You literally have free advertisement. Back then, you had to pay for advertisement. Nowadays, we have it for free.
Or like you needed to know the certain people.
Right. You need to connect yourself. You need to learn how to network with the right people, go to the right events. I'm like, nowadays, all the events, a lot of them happen online.
A lot of people get discovered online.
Right.
And again, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's still something that you have to be very, very disciplined about, but it's doable, you know? And at the end of the day, I will die on this hill. Do something that you're passionate about. Do something that you at least enjoy. Because yes, money is important, but you hear of a lot of people being on their deathbed and just saying, I wish I enjoyed my life more.
Right.
Because all I did was work. And even the people that enjoy that work, you know, it's like they wish they would have spent time with their loved ones or done things they wanted, because you work with the mindset of, okay, at 65, I'm going to retire. Then I'm going to do everything I love.
Yeah, like that doesn't make sense.
Because then by then, you really won't have all that energy.
Yeah, for sure. Like, let's say, okay, one of my dreams is I want to go skydiving one day. I'm not going to wait till I'm 65 just so I can die in the middle of my skydive because I have a fucking heart attack.
And your dentures falling out. Can you imagine your teeth just like, oh
my gosh, that'd be gross. That'd be so funny.
But yeah, and then another struggle that we actually were talking about off camera that I need to bring up before we forget is being a Latina, period, as an entrepreneur is a struggle within itself. Like just being a Latina who wants to be an entrepreneur, who's aspiring to be an entrepreneur is so hard because our culture, our community is not in that mindset. And so it's very hard for the people around you to believe in you, to see your vision, to be able to fully support you as far as, you know, encouragement and all of that, because we were raised to always have, not even have fear, but just to always be cautious. But that also translates into being fearful.
Right.
You always get the, oh, but what if this? What if it doesn't work out? What if you spend all this time and no te da nada?
Right.
¿Qué vas a hacer? ¿Vas a dejar tu trabajo para hacer qué? Arte? ¿Y cómo vas a pagar tus bills? You know?
Yeah.
It's very, very fear-based. We have to basically rewire our blueprint within ourselves to try to do that we're doing that has never been done before us. Because at least for me, almost every Latina that I know doesn't have an entrepreneur in their life. They're having to learn everything on their own.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that's a challenge within itself. Luckily, we do live in that world where everything is at our at our fingertips.
Fingerprints.
Everything's in our fingerprints. No, everything's at our fingertips. You know, like you can look up a YouTube video, you can Google it, you can find a podcast about it. Like there's so many different things that you can do to access all that information. And that's what me and Ellie have had to do. And I'm also grateful because it's a journey within itself. It's not information that has been handed down to us. It's not money that has been given to us. You know, it's all things that we're having to start from the very bottom.
Right.
But it's also very difficult. Especially, I think, in the beginning when we first told our family about it, it was very hard for them to wrap their heads around how can you make this your job? Like it's a podcast.
Right. And I think it's like whenever our family kind of came over here to the States, it's like they came over here partly because they wanted to have a better life, and not just for them, but for us.
Right.
They wanted to give us different opportunities. So in their mind, they're like, okay, our kids are going to go to school, they're going to go to college so they can have a good job, right? That's basically it. The thing is that was their dream because that's what they wanted. And so, of course, they want good things for us, but they want to implement that kind of dream onto us. And frankly, like, that's not for everybody.
No.
And us two included, you know, like that kind of path just was not for me.
Right.
Not for
like
you either.
We both tried the school thing. We both went to college. We tried it out, and ultimately we've came to the conclusion that it just wasn't for us.
Right.
But that also was a hard decision because
it was. Whenever our parents came to the States, they obviously had to teach themselves everything from scratch. Like they didn't even know the language to begin with. So they needed to learn to adapt to the States. They needed to learn the language, the different culture, the different traditions that are established here, how to survive here. That's something that they needed to teach themselves, right? And then they taught us,
right? So
that way we wouldn't have to struggle that thing. The thing is, because we didn't want to follow the dreams that they wanted for us, we needed to learn a different kind of struggle, you know, that being learning how to become entrepreneurs, how to chase our dreams the way that we need to chase them with the social and economic environment that we're growing up in, because it was a lot different than it was back then.
We're not living in the world they lived in.
Right.
It's just different world.
Right. Because I was talking to my dad not that long ago. He had moved out here. He was like about 22, 23. and he was living out on his own apartment, that he had saved up money. So he was basically the only one paying for that apartment. Nowadays, one person making money off a minimum wage job,
impossible.
You can't pay rent. You can't even apply.
Mm-mm. Well, see, I didn't even know this. It's different in every state. So we're from Texas, and the way it works here, I don't know how it works in your state, but when you're trying to get an apartment, just to qualify, you need to make 3 times the freaking rent. So if your lease, let's say the apartment is $1,500, you need to make 3 times that just to be able to qualify. If they see that you can't even make you don't make even 3 times the rent, they don't even process your application. But you pay the application fee. Like, it's ridiculous. And I saw not too long ago that it's not like that in every state. But either way, like, that's crazy.
Right. So it's like, in the same sense, we're kind of doing the same kind of struggles they did. They picked that struggle for us. That way we don't have to go through that struggle. And thankfully, we don't have to go through that struggle of having to go somewhere, a new state, a new country, learn the language, learn how to survive.
Well,
somewhat. Oh, just kidding. Sorry.
Well, I did, but see, I was also thinking of that. I feel like I'm in a very also unique situation. Well, unique, but not really, because there's so many of us. I relate more to first gen Mexicans, but by definition, I'm not a first gen Mexican. I am an immigrant Mexican because, like, Ellie, she's a first gen because her parents were immigrants, but she was born here.
Right.
So by definition, I'm not that, because I was born in Mexico and I was brought here when I was a kid. But I associate more myself with, like, first gens like you, as opposed to, like, an immigrant Mexican who's like our parents, because the age, you know. But by definition, I'm not a first gen. I'm an immigrant Mexican, and I did have to come to a whole other country and learn the language and learn how to survive, because things were very different. Even as a kid, like, the way the school was set up where I went was so different from here, especially because over there I went to a private school y era una escuela de monjas. Y, like, para toda mi gente que sabe, las escuelas de monjas privadas en México, a whole other world. They're so strict. I mean, they're run by nuns. Nuns are crazy. They're strict. And then to go from that, and then I came here to a public school, bruh, I was...
completely different world.
Yeah, even though luckily I was in a bilingual program, so literally every class was in Spanish. They call it bilingual, but really it's Spanish. It was like 80%, or maybe even more, like maybe 85% Spanish and 15% English. So I was good. I was in my element. All the kids I was around with, like, hablaban puro español. So in that instance, nada de problemas. Pero como sea, it's a different world. The way people act, the way, what is found cool, what is found acceptable. And not only that, but allá en Mexico, it's just a whole different world. Like, te la pasas afuera, íbamos al tianguis, íbamos al mercado, caminando en el bus. The weather was even super different. Then I came here to where you literally can't even survive without a car. If you don't have a car, I mean, yes, you obviously, like, can ride the bus, and now there's Uber. There was no Uber back then, but, like, you know, buses, taxis. Pero aquí pasan every, maybe 20-25 minutes. Allá en Mexico, like, if you know, un autobús cada 5 minutos. And it sounds like something so simple, but just even that was such a culture change, or a cultural shock, that I was not prepared for, and I was only 6 years old.
Damn.
So, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're good,
I don't fall under the category. Yeah. So I also had to deal with that, and I'm having to deal. So I feel like I'm having to deal with, or I've had to deal with both struggles.
Yeah.
And that also affects me within my identity, because, like I said, by definition, I'm Mexican immigrant, but I really more identify with first gens.
Gotcha.
You know, but it's hard. It's an identity crisis. All my DACA kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so they chose a certain struggle, that way we wouldn't, or at least, or so that we wouldn't have to experience the same kind of struggle that they did, or at least try to. Right. And we're also learning this whole entrepreneurship. So that way in the future, our kids, if that's what they choose to do rather than go to college, they're not starting from scratch. You know, they're gonna have people who already know how to start, what to do, and all that stuff.
We can show them the ropes,
right? So they're not gonna start from nothing. They're going to have people who can help them lead their own way,
right?
And so that's a struggle that we're choosing to do. That way, our future won't have to go through that same thing,
right?
But of course,
they may choose a different path.
And they may choose a different struggle too,
right? So. And that's just how it is. Everyone lives a different life. Everybody wants a different kind of lifestyle. Everyone has different goals,
right?
But it definitely has been a struggle within itself, just being a Latina, having to rewrite everything that has been taught to us,
right?
Not having that fear, because even now when we tell our parents what we're doing, it's always, okay, but what if this?
Yeah.
But what if that?
¿Qué vas a hacer cuando esto pase? ¿Qué vas a hacer cuando ya no tengas suficiente dinero? ¿Qué vas a hacer cuando ya empieces a necesitar ayuda? Like, okay, we're not there yet.
And it may not even happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And just to know, you're not alone. There's a lot of us dealing with that. And we're just trying to rewrite what our family's success looks like. And I also think it has partially to do with the fact that they are used to seeing results right away.
Right.
Because they are used to doing work, getting a paycheck.
Right. The results literally come to you right away. You work, you get money.
Right.
But with entrepreneurship, that's not really how it goes. It takes a while before you even start to see fruits to your labor.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's hard for them to wrap their heads around. And I don't blame them. Again, it's how they grew up. It's the culture. But that also is very difficult. And I don't blame them, like I said, because when they are like, okay, you're putting all this work into it when you could be working somewhere else and getting money, like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, don't do that, basically. Luckily, we have a very supportive family. Even though it has been at times hard for them to wrap their heads around, they support us 100%. And they always tell us, échale ganas, and you can do it. Pero sí hay veces when you can, even if they don't say it with their words, you hear it in their tone.
Yeah.
They're very, very like...
It's that...
Literally, like, ¿qué estás haciendo ahorita? Oh, vamos a hacer un episodio del podcast. Oh, no, que ibas a trabajar. Oh, yeah, pero, I'll go later. Or not today. And they're like, You just it's like, I mean, at least you're not telling me anything else, but that says it all.
Yeah. It's like they're not saying nothing, but they're saying so much.
Literally.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, I think a huge motivation for me too, now that we're talking about parents, is when I step back to one of my biggest life goals is to be able to provide a lot for my mom. Like, she came to this country with so many uncertainties and with a 6-year-old kid. Like, I can't even imagine. Now that I'm a mom, I cannot imagine moving to a whole other country. Even if I have a cousin sibling over there, I just can't even fathom having to move my world with my 6-year-old. So the fact that she did that, and she's just always been so strong, single mom, did so much for me, such a hard working woman, always made it happen, even though we lived paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes, like, we couldn't buy what we wanted, but, just what we needed. She always made sure I had what I needed. I never went to bed hungry. I never didn't have clothes, things like that, Like, she's just an all-around amazing freaking person and mother, the best mother I could have asked for. And just like any other immigrant parent, like, they gave up their life for us. And even though we are not necessarily living in the way that they want us to, as far as, like, we didn't go to school and all of that, I want to show her that even though I didn't take that path, her sacrifices weren't done for no reason. I want to let her know that everything she has ever done for me was for a reason, and it wasn't wasted. And I want to be able to pay her back, literally, because she has worked her ass off for years and years doing some heavy work that I could never. And I admire her so much for that. And I want to get to the point in life where I'm able to take care of her. And me and Ellie have talked about this. We don't want our parents to work till they're 65, till they're legally able to retire. There's just no, like, I just don't want that. And a big motivator for me is that, just to show my mom that, hey, everything you sacrificed, everything you ever did, like, here is the fruit of it, like, it was for a reason, and like, here you go, and that's a really, really big motivator for me.
And same here. There's days where I can't even motivate myself, like, where I'm trying to do this for me because I want a better future for myself and things like that. There's times where I can't find any motivation, but then I start reminding myself of the dream that I have, that I want to be able to bring up people with me, one of them being my parents, right? That I want to set them up so that they're comfortable and they're like, I don't want them to have to worry about their finances ever again. And there's times where I can't motivate myself, but I remind myself that I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for other people. And even though I haven't made any promises to them that I'm going to do it, like, I made a promise to myself that I'm going to do it, right? And that's a promise that I want to keep. And so it's like, it's not just me depending on me. I have other people depending on me, even though they themselves didn't say that they're depending on me. Like, in my promise to myself, they're depending on me
for sure.
That sense.
Yeah.
And I can't let them down on that. Like, I need to do this for them. So if I can't do it for me, I need to do it for them.
For sure.
So, and I don't know, that's always been something that's motivated me to keep doing it, even though I don't want to do it sometimes. And
yeah, like, think of the people that are depending on you, and that doesn't always look like your kids,
right?
It can look like your parents, your siblings, because one thing that I absolutely adore about our culture is the family,
how close knit we are.
Yes, like, family is the center of everything. We love our family. We do everything with family. Like, even though even our parents, sometimes they can't see our vision, they will never not support us.
Right.
I know, like, if we're like, dang, we're in a pickle, like, can you help me out with this? They'll give us the last of what they have to get us there, and forever grateful for that we were given the family that we were giving, because they're just freaking amazing.
They are.
They're freaking amazing. But also, so like another little motivator for me is the obvious one. So I am a mother, and when I see my little one, I want to give him the life that I wasn't able to have. Again, super grateful for everything my mom ever did, but there's some things that I don't want my child to go through that I had to go through. And things like working through high school. I know a lot of people do it because they want to, and I think it is great. Like, it teaches them responsibility, time management. Like, it teaches you a lot. It gets you into the real world, because the real world nada que ver con school.
But when you have to, that's a whole different story.
Right. I had to, and I've actually been paying half of everything ever since I was a junior in high school. I would give my mom half of the rent. I would give her half of every utility. I would pay the insurance on the car. I would pay my own phone. I would fill up the I would pay a lot, and it was because I had to. And so it wasn't one of those things where, oh, I'm just going to go to work to get the experience, and all the money I have for my own, and I can go and like spend it on whatever. And don't get me wrong, I did have a few bucks usually at the end of the month to spend on my own, but I still had a lot of responsibility just being a junior in high school, and I don't regret it. I used to love helping my mom because I knew that would take some stress off of her, and I knew I was old enough to at least be able to do that, but I don't want my son to grow up with that kind of responsibility on his shoulders, or that kind of stress, because it can get stressful sometimes. I remember the very last semester, the second to last semester of my senior year, I was on the verge of not graduating because I wasn't completing my senior projects because I was working so much. And I remember in my English class, you know that English project that a lot of people have to do, the scrapbook?
Yeah.
So we had to do that as our senior project for English class. And I had written something on there about working, and I can't remember what I put, but ultimately my English teacher was like, well, you know, school is more important than working. And I looked at her and I was like, are you going to pay my bills? Because, you know, I pay half of the rent, right? It's like me and my mom, and I pay half of it. If I don't pay it, we're going to get evicted. You're going to give me money for my bills? She just stayed quiet. It's like, I understand school is important, but not everyone is in the same position to just be like, okay, no, yeah, school's important. I'm not going to work.
Right.
And I'm just going to focus on school. I didn't have that luxury. I had to work, you know? And at the time, like, yeah, maybe that was on my end. I didn't manage it correctly, but still, it's a lot for a 17-year-old to have to do, you know?
Right.
And with that being said, I know I also had it easy. I know there are kids out there who have it way worse, and they may be responsible for a full family.
Right.
You know, so I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's hard, and I don't want my kid to go through that. And also, like, even college, I want to be able to give my son the option of, you don't want to work through college? That's fine. I got you. But you better focus 100% on school, and those grades better be reflecting it. Because if I'm paying for everything and you're bringing me nothing but failing classes because you're out partying, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, also teach them responsibility in a different way, but definitely don't want that kind of stress on him that I think a lot of us Hispanics have. I think a lot of us start working at a very young age. A lot of us have a lot of responsibility within our household, and I don't think it's necessarily bad because it makes us who we are. It makes us very strong, very hard workers. But I also think it adds a lot of stress from a very young age.
For sure.
And also, we talked about this a little bit. All we know is struggle, and all we know is hard work, and it's embedded into us, and it becomes our identity, and it's the only thing we know.
Right.
And I feel like that also adds a fear of success, because it's like, if we're not struggling, if we're not living paycheck to paycheck, then who are we?
Yeah.
Because that's also the Mexican culture.
So like, if I'm not struggling, then I'm not Mexican then.
Literally. Yeah. Y luego, porque también oyes eso within our own community. You start making good money. You start obviously dressing better, living in a better house, having a better car, because if you work hard and you start getting that money, of course you want to treat yourself.
Right.
And I think you should. Your own people start talking down on you.
Yeah.
Oh, mira, ella se fue para el norte y ya no es mexicana, ya no sabe sus I don't even know, like, what would they say, you know? But I have heard of people just talk down on others that have become successful. Y que, ya se creen la gran cosa y ya ni me habla y this and that. And not only that, but then I also feel like Mexican families feel entitled to your success. Like, if you succeed,
then everybody else has to succeed.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against putting your people on, but why should I give it to you?
Yeah.
Like, let's say we are able to provide employment, then, you know, by all means, I'll have my family working for me if they want, but I'm not just gonna give you money. But yeah, it's our culture. It's basically like our identity to struggle, which is crazy. And I know it sounds almost dumb and corny, but it really is that. I feel like a lot of us are sometimes scared of success because all we know is struggle. All we know is paycheck to paycheck. And without that, it's almost like you can't even envision yourself. Right. Because you're like that, your family's like that, your cousins are like that.
Like, you grow up not seeing any examples of Latinos being wealthy, and all you see is everybody struggling.
Right.
That's what you see. So that's how you see your future.
Exactly. And it's very hard to rewire that. And not only within our families, but also like as society. Whenever Hispanics are portrayed in movies and shows, it's always the housekeeper, the gardener, what else? Basically all the labor workers, right? The nanny. It's never the family that's well off, you know what I mean? And so it's embedded in us within our family. It's embedded in us within the things we watch, within the things we consume. And so we have to rewire ourselves in a lot of different ways. And not only that, but our identity. Like I said, I really truly feel like a lot of us feel that struggle is part of our identity. Y sin eso, ¿quiénes somos? Yeah. Like you said, no somos mexicanos sin eso.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's like, and so in a sense, we feel like we're not deserving of being wealthy, and we're only meant to struggle. That's pretty much it.
And work. Like, but
struggle and work really hard. But struggle
is a strong one in there for sure. We haven't made that clear enough. Struggle. We should say it slower. Struggle. Yeah. And then también as far as Latinas go, because as women, we're not looked at as the go-getters. We're not looked at as the make it happen. We're looked at as the one that just has to stay home and take care of the home.
Yeah, we're seen as the ones that need to maintain everything, and then the guys are the ones that are supposed to be the breadwinners. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know about that.
And even though that has changed a lot, like obviously there's a lot of successful Latina entrepreneurs, which is very empowering and very powerful to see it happening. I also think it's still very hard to change that mindset, because it has been going on for years and years and years and years.
Right.
That's just not our position. And so I also think it's very easy for people to look at us and be like, nah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because at least for us anyway, we didn't grow up with any women in our lives that are already entrepreneurs or who have made their own business or who make their own income, in the sense that that they're their own boss or CEO or whatever. Right? Everybody, the women that in our lives, the ones who do work for somebody else, like their employees. Right. And for the most part, the only chance that we get to see another woman being their own boss, being their own CEO, being the entrepreneur or the businesswoman, they're not even related to us. The only chance we ever get to see them is through social media. So at the same time, you kind of get that feeling, well, that's social media. Is like, that feels so far away, even though it's in your screen. It feels so far away. Right, because we don't personally know them. Right, and it just feels so unrealistic because you don't actually see it in person. You're seeing it through a screen. Right. So.
It wasn't given to us as an example. And the very few Latinos that I personally know within my life that are entrepreneurs are all males. I can think of like maybe a handful that I know personally, and all males. Yeah. I don't think I know any female Latinas. Yeah. And but hey, we're trying to pave the way.
Yes, we're trying to pave the way. We're trying to pave a new way for us, for our family.
For our family, yeah, because of course we know that it has been done, and for generations for some. And it's awesome to see, especially now. It's such a booming category, entrepreneur Latinas, that I'm here for, and I love seeing it. I love seeing our women succeed. It's, I don't know, it's so corny, but every time I see it, it just makes me so happy for them, and it makes our dream seem that much reachable. Every time I see a new one, I'm like, okay, we can get there. Yeah. Okay, we got this.
So seeing them is also pretty inspiring and motivating.
For sure. Like, how a lot of people say representation is important. Like, it is, because when you can see yourself in somebody else doing the things that you want to do, it's so powerful. It's so powerful to have that representation.
So one of the other things that has also kept me motivated is the fact that we can also see our own progress over time. Like, this is not how we started, definitely not how we started.
You couldn't even see us in the beginning.
You couldn't see us, and we've had more people listening to us. We can see that, the numbers change, in views, in our analytics, all of that, and being able to see that progress, even though it hasn't jumped from 1 viewer to 1 million viewers overnight, it's still progress, and the fact that you see progress, it adds up, and that itself is motivating. Being able to see your actual progress is motivating,
for sure.
And I feel like that goes for any kind of thing, because apart from the podcast, I've done that when it comes to my fitness. I'll take before pictures and after pictures of months or a year's difference. And like I've seen my pictures from whenever I was like 17, 18, whenever I graduated high school, and I look at my pictures and I'm like, dang. Like I feel like I wasn't palito, but like compared to how I am now, I was palito, you know? And I was just so thin and little. And I remember the kind of mentality that I had back then.
Yeah.
And I think about myself now. It's like, oh my gosh, all the progress that I've made in these past years, mentally and physically. Like my body looks so different than it used to back then.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You know? And so you can apply that kind of thing, that progress, on any goal that you have, whether that be like in the school, in the gym, like your dreams, like you're doing art, or let's say you're starting your own business doing lashes or cosmetology, whatever it is. Like you can see your progress over time. Like you might have started with like one client or one customer. Now maybe you have 10. That's still a growth.
And this is another thing. Don't compare yourself, especially through social media. I think that can be one of the biggest
detriments that you can do to yourself.
Because you're like, okay, yes, I've made progress, but I'm not like this person. I'm not like that person. Like, I don't have my own studio. I don't have this. I don't have that. But that takes away from being able to step back and look at your own progress. Because one day you may be like that or even bigger, but you're allowing yourself to mentally get stuck because you want to be like this or that or this or that so bad.
Right.
No one's on the same path. No one's on the same journey. No one's on the same, level as you. The only competition is yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think on that end, I think it does help a lot to see yourself like in a third person perspective, because whenever you're so into what you're doing, whatever dream that you're chasing, you're so caught up in the way that you're feeling. So in a sense, you're looking at the details of the picture that you're looking at. But whenever you look at yourself in third person, it's like you're taking a look at the bigger picture. So it's like you're taking yourself out of that situation. And I'll do this, like I'll literally talk to myself in third person. Like I'll sometimes like I'll be in bed, I'm like,
damn it, Ellie,
I don't want to do shit today, So then I'll literally talk to myself like I'm a whole ass different person. I'm like, okay, yo sé que te sientes así. I'm like, pero hay que hacer solamente una cosa por lo menos. I'm like, párate, like, lávate los dientes, bañate y like lee un libro, right? Lo único que tienes que hacer por ahorita. And so then that kind of convinces me to do it, right? And then once I start doing that, once I read, I'm like, okay, what else can I do?
Yeah, so, then you feel
right.
Yep.
Like you have to find your own way to get yourself out of that like little rut that or like that little hole that you build yourself into or get yourself into.
For sure. And be realistic with it.
Right.
Like, let's say your goal, because we've talked a lot about the podcast being our biggest motivation, but that's not our only thing that we're doing. It's just the main thing. It's when we wanted to lead on. But like, let's say going to the gym, because I also wanted to start, and that's one that I've been having a rocky path with. And so setting realistic expectations so you don't let yourself down. So like, let's say you haven't gone to the gym in 2 years, but then you're like, okay, I'm going to hit the gym every single day for 2 hours. Like, you also gotta...
That's also not realistic. Like, for some people, it may work to either go cold turkey on like giving up something or jumping right in onto doing something and go full throttle. That may work for somebody. That's not for everybody. Sometimes you gotta start small.
Like, what if you make yourself at least go 1 day out of the week?
Right.
And then maybe the next week, 2 days.
Yeah, or maybe like, because I'll do this. Sometimes like I won't go to the gym for like a week or two. Y like me da tanta hueva to go back again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I really don't want to go to the gym. I'm like, okay, let me just walk around for like 30 minutes. And I'll do that for like a week or two. And then after that, I'm like, okay, let me do some cardio. I'm like, okay. And then, all right, now let's go to the gym. After like 2-3 weeks of just walking or cardio, like doing something, like it doesn't have to be something so
like full on hardcore, all the way in.
Right. Like you don't have to give your entire energy at the very beginning, because you're just going to be draining yourself out. So
yeah, you're going to bring yourself out. I mean, like that. It's going to go out. And I think with that, we can tie it into something that I think is super important, that you have to work at it, whatever it is that you're trying to do, not just when you're motivated, but you have to do it every single day, if possible, or whatever your schedule looks like. But whenever you try to do it with motivation, like just when motivation strikes, because that's what me and Ellie were actually doing for a while, and I think that's why we were so inconsistent with a lot of things, is you can't control when motivation hits.
Right.
There are days when you're fully motivated and inspired for 24 hours, so you go all out those 24 hours, but then you're burnt out for the rest of the week. It's not going to work that way. You have to allow yourself to give some breaks, and you have to learn really good habits. I mean, habits are so important. And with that is being consistent.
Right.
And being, what's the word?
Determined?
Yeah. No, there's another word.
Shit, what is it called?
Something like educated.
I know what word you're thinking about, but why can't I think about it?
Can't think of it.
Disciplined.
There you go. Oh my gosh, you knew exactly what I was talking about.
I knew it started with the D. I'm like...
You have to be super consistent and super... Shit, what was the word? Disciplined. Oh my gosh. You have to be super consistent and super disciplined. Like, even if you're not feeling motivated, it does not matter. Work at it for an hour that day. Because you know what? Once you do the whole week and you do an hour a day, that's not just an hour. At the end of that's 7 hours.
Right.
It's a full work day, you know? And I think that's a really, really, really important one for entrepreneurs, that it's so easy for us to be like, yeah, today I'm feeling it. Let's go. And you go hard and hard. And then by the end of the day, you're like, I'm so over it because it's so much. And I can't keep working like this for the rest of my life, you know? And it's like, that's not how it's meant to be.
Right.
You're supposed to space it out, give yourself breaks. Like, you also don't want to work yourself to the bone. Like, that's what we're trying to avoid, you know? But when you're disciplined and you say, okay, I'm not feeling it today, but I'll give it an hour. I'm not feeling it today again, but I'm doing it 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever your timeline may look like. I think that is so important. And it's key in being successful.
Right. I think one thing is building habits builds up to your discipline. So like one thing that I like recently learned and I started implementing for myself, it's called habit stacking. It's something that I learned from a book that I was recently reading called Atomic Habits. Habit stacking is kind of taking the habits that you already do and adding another habit to it. So like one that I was recently doing so that I could start reading more, it's like, okay, it tells you to do, like, when you do something, so it's like basically telling yourself to either write it or tell it to yourself, when I do this, I will do this. So for me, that was, when I make my bed, I'm going to put a book on my pillow. That way, whenever I go back to go to sleep at night, I have my pillow there already reminding myself that, okay, I want to read for 30 minutes. So I'll read for 30 minutes and before I go to sleep. And that's habit stacking. So I already have the habit of making my bed, so I'm going to add reading to it, you know, that kind of thing. So I mean, you can apply that to like any kind of thing, but ultimately that habit will lead to that discipline of doing it for 30 minutes, 2 hours, 5 hours a day, whatever it may be. You know,
because the hardest part is starting it and keeping it going. Right. Once you get that habit going, I mean, it's just going to keep going, and it's like you're doing it in your sleep. Right. 'Cause it's a habit. You know, you just do it. And that's ultimately the goal. Right. You know? And so I think ultimately it's not what keeps us motivated. It's what keeps us going.
Yeah,
because
what keeps us disciplined.
It's what keeps us disciplined, because let's be honest, we're not going to be motivated 24/7 every day. Like, we have it too, especially with like this, which is more content creation. There's a lot of thinking into it. There's a lot of planning. And we're not always motivated to do so. Right. But the key here is being disciplined to just do it. And like I said, we weren't doing that for a while. We were like, no, we're not feeling it today. Then we'll just leave it for a day we're feeling it. Right. Girl, así nunca se va a hacer nada.
I know, because realistically, you're only motivated maybe like 30-40% of the time. The rest of the time, it takes discipline. You really don't want to do that shit. You're going to make yourself do that shit. Like,
force yourself.
A huevo lo vas a hacer.
A huevo. A huevo. No, for sure. And that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And it is tough in the beginning. And I did see this post that said a lot of the times when people make their passion and their hobbies a job, that's what takes the enjoyment out of it. Because when it's just a hobby, you do it just when you're motivated, when you're in the mood, when you want to escape, when you want to whatever.
Right.
When you make it a habit, when you make it a job, when you make it your career, lo tienes que hacer porque lo tienes que hacer a huevo. So that may take some enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
But you have to see the big picture.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, jobs are hard. Working is hard no matter what you do. So what kind of hard do you want?
You got to choose your hard. Do you want the hard of being broke all the damn time, or just living paycheck to paycheck doing a 9 to 5? Or do you want the struggle of making this shit stick and making it work?
Yeah.
So
life is hard. Even if you do what you love, it's not going to take the hard away from it. Like, it's still going to be work. It's still going to be hard. And like I said earlier, when you're the boss, when you're the one creating it, you're going to have to work that much more. Because when you work for someone else, you do what you're there to get paid. Like, you're there to do what you're getting paid to do. And then once that 5 o'clock hits or whatever your time is, you're out. You're done. You don't got to worry about, like, if something goes wrong and you're with your family, you're going to call your boss. Because they're going to deal with it.
That's not my problem. I'm not the manager. I'm not the boss. That's all on you. Deuces.
Literally. But when you're the boss, everything's on you. Because if something falls, that's your livelihood. Like, especially in the beginning, you have to do so much heavy lifting, like I said. But it's worth it at the end. I think that's my biggest motivator, you know, like the end goal, but also the journey. We've talked about enjoying the journey. Like I said, all the learning we're having to do, all the research. I actually enjoy doing the research.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody. Like, it is a lot of work behind the scenes. It's crazy. Like, it's not really just hitting record, stop, edit, post. Like, it's so much work.
So much planning that goes into it. Like how Dulce said, it's not just the recording, editing, and posting. Like, there's so much more that goes into just that part. Like, into choosing what you're going to talk about, into choosing how you want to edit, what you want to do with the editing, you know.
Yeah,
there's so much that goes into it.
Right. And I'm just speaking from experience. Like, this is what I know. I know every business has a lot of work into it. Like, restaurants, if you want to sell merchandise, like, everything, anything you choose is hard work. And so you also have to go with that mindset of it's not going to be easy. Because I think also a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be easy, I'm my own boss, I can choose what I want to do when I want to do it. It's really not. Like, yes, you have flexibility of when you can do it, but at the same time you don't, because you have to do it almost 24/7.
For real. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's hard, but I feel like it's the most rewarding, at least for us, because this lifestyle is not for everyone. Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. And again, we're only speaking on this specific topic because it's what hits home for us at this particular moment. But you can take this into anything that you're doing. And whether it be like if you're working for a promotion, if you're wanting to eat healthier, if you're wanting to go to the gym, if you're wanting to pick up art, like,
whatever it may be.
Possibilities are endless. But at the end of the day, you have to be disciplined. Pick up good habits. Surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed, and someone you can really fall back on when, like, shit hits the fan.
Right.
Porque las cosas son difíciles, pero tener alguien ahí que siempre está para ayudarte, para darte un consejo, o para darte una en la cabeza y decirte, nah, get it together, you know, whatever it is. Like, it's so important to have that. And like I said, it may be someone that you don't even have in your life right now. Go out and look for it. Don't be scared. I know you gotta be social, but it's out there. There's someone and something for everybody.
For real.
And having Ellie to do this with, I mean, it's been a blessing.
Yes. It's been a blessing with you too.
Yay. And the fact that we are both wanting to do the same thing and on the same path, but obviously in a different way, because we're both still individuals and we still have our own stuff going on individually. But this is our biggest collective goal.
Yeah. Like, we have one huge mutual goal, And even though we have like individual goals, they're still kind of leading towards the same way. So we still get to talk about it together, and we still get to bounce off ideas, and we kind of get to make it our own in that particular sense. But with this one, it's like we're both leading into it.
For sure.
So
yeah,
it helps.
Yes.
I think one other thing that has helped me keep going with this too is that since people are seeing what we're doing, people will ask me how it's going, or ask me about the progress, or ask me what we're doing lately, that kind of thing. So I think the embarrassment of being like, oh, well, we kind of let it go, that kind of thing, or like, oh, it's not really working out, that kind of thing. Like, I feel like that itself, trying to avoid those kinds of moments has also kept me motivated. I'm like, I don't want to go through that kind of thing.
Right.
You know? Like, I picked something up and then I didn't go through it. And having to have that awkward conversation with somebody, you know?
Yeah.
If it's not meant for you, obviously don't do it. You don't want to put even more energy into something that's not meant for you. And if you know it's not meant for you, don't keep doing it. But this is something that I truly believe that is meant for us. And I don't want to go through that awkward or embarrassing moment of like, well, yeah, well, we kind of let it go, and that kind of thing. It's just like, no.
It was there, now it's not.
Yeah. Like, we're working towards this. And I guess in a sense, other people are keeping me accountable because they're asking me about the progress kind of way.
Right.
You know, and so that's one thing that's kept me going too. And by all means, like, I'm not saying like you should really care what people are going to think about you, but in this instance, I feel like it has been helpful.
Yeah.
Because it's pushed me to keep going.
Yeah, and it's also like, oh, people want to know what you're doing. People want to see that next episode. So that's also motivating within itself.
Yeah.
That we've seen people enjoy it. We've seen really good responses from you guys. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yes. So for sure, that is very, very helpful in keeping us motivated to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But like Ellie said, she touched a note on it. It's okay to do something and then kind of change your mind. I think we're in the perfect stage of our lives to try different things and see what works for you. Because that first one may not work for you, and that's okay. Like, you gotta scratch that itch. That's what we call it. You know, if you have that itch of, I want to try this, try it.
Like, how are you supposed to know what you shouldn't and shouldn't do in your life if you don't give yourself the opportunity to explore what it is that you even want to do? Like, how are you supposed to know that you're meant to be an artist, but you've never given yourself the opportunity to even try doing art? No,
especially here in the US, the way the school system is, no nos dan opción de hacer nada. No hacemos ni madres. Lo único que hacemos is like the basics, and that's just,
I feel like it kills your creativity to do whatever it is that you want to do.
Right. Especially the creative aspect of it. Like, yeah, like, si quieres hacer cosas que tienen que ver como, like, si quieres ser maestro, accounting, engineering, I feel like that's more, you know, people really know more because you take more math classes, more science classes. But on the creative aspect of it, I definitely feel like the way the school system is set up, like, it really kills that side of you.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, you got to start trying it out after you get out of school.
Unless you're lucky enough to try it out while you're in school, but obviously outside of school, but while
in high school. Yeah. Because that's also a thing that I think is not the best within our culture and ser Latinos. Porque muchos de nosotros crecimos sin mucho dinero. Cuando teníamos un hobby, cuando teníamos algo que queríamos hacer, there was just not money. There was no money to do those things.
Right.
You only had to do it maybe within the scope of school or the scope of, I don't know, something else within a community around you. But así que digas, take it up and like really run with it, no se podía. ¿No era porcilla?
I was trying to say no era posible, but then I was saying what you were trying to say at the same time, and I just mixed the words together.
Hashtag
no era posible.
Hashtag Mexican problems. We love mixing up words, especially in el Spanglish.
I know. Oh my god.
But yeah, so no es muy posible en nuestra cultura porque no hay mucha posibilidad. Pero, yeah, I mean, with that being said, I'm not saying every Mexican is poor either. Like, I know there are very well financially stable Mexicans. It's just, generally speaking, for the most part, a lot of us come from struggling families or families that have enough just to pay the needs and not so much the wants. And that's where hobbies come in. Hobbies are wants, and hobbies are expensive. Like, art is expensive if you want to do scrapbooking, like things like that.
Tienes que comprar todos los materiales y todo eso. Like, si quieres hacer, I don't know, soccer, basketball, lo que tú digas, fútbol, like, tienes que comprar los uniformes, like the cleats, whatever. Like, there's a shit ton of money that goes into it.
And then, like, for sports teams que, you know, que hacen su liga in different, like, parks, you gotta pay to get in. And then when, like, if they win and go to, like, they're semifinalists or whatever, like, they gotta pay to get into the tournament. Sometimes they gotta drive. It's not like within their local area. Like, it's a lot that goes into it. And so I feel like it's not possible for a lot of us to scratch those itches of like, oh, I want to try this, I want to try that. But now as an adult, we're a little more able to. So if you're able to scratch those itches, because also we, like we said, in this economy, like, we may not be able to, but if there's certain things you're able to try out, don't be scared. And if it doesn't work out for you, it doesn't fucking work out. And then you move on to the next one.
Scratch the next itch.
So you can at least be on your deathbed and be like, I did everything I wanted to do.
I tried everything out.
Because if you really want to do something and you really don't, toda la vida vas a vivir con que, what if I did that? What if it had worked out?
What if I had tried it out? You know, like, what if I gave it a chance? You know?
And what if it's like, it's not even within the reach. In your mind, it's not within reach, but you try it out and it pops off. And then you become, like, super successful with it, and, like, you start your own thing, or you start working for someone doing what you love, because you don't always have to, like, be your own thing. You can do what you love while working for someone. You know what I mean? It's just, at the end of the day, just do what you love. Do what you love what you do.
Y al último, nunca vas a saber si algo te va a funcionar o no, al menos que lo intentes de hacer. Porque si no lo intentas, te vas a quedar con esa pregunta por toda tu vida. So.
Y no, qué feo vivir así. Couldn't be me. Just kidding. Because this is something I just started. There's still a lot of scratches I haven't itched.
Yeah, same here.
A lot of itches I haven't scratched.
Wait,
so that's so backwards.
I didn't even catch that, and I agreed. I'm like, yeah.
It like made sense, but like that's not what it's meant to say.
What did you even
There was a lot of scratches I haven't itched. But it's
a lot of itches that I haven't scratched.
Yeah, there's a lot of itches I haven't scratched. Like, there's still a lot of things I want to try. But like I said, because of how the economy is and everything, and because of a lot of things, I haven't been able to do them. But my goal is to be in a position to be able to do those things in the future.
Right.
Because I do want to, there's a lot of things I want to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot of us. Like, there's, how do I pick what I want to do? Because I want to do A, B, through Z.
Yeah.
We'll start with A.
Yeah, like, todavía somos jóvenes, you know, like, especially, like, if you're still in your 20s, you're out of high school, whatever, use this time to literally explore everything and anything. Like, you've never tried dance, but you've always been intrigued about it. Go join, like, a dance crew or something. Like, go to, like, some dance classes.
Si no puedes, look up dances on YouTube. TikTok. Or TikTok.
Yeah, YouTube or TikTok. Like, everybody's dancing on YouTube and TikTok. Like, find something on there, and then, I don't know, go practice at a park. Maybe you'll find some people there, or people will find you because they see you dancing. You know, that's how you get to know people. Like, literally try everything out. Everything in your life doesn't have to be certain, you know. Like, you don't have to have life figured out.
Right.
So I'm willing to bet people in your life that are like 50, 60 years old, they don't know what they're gonna do when they're 80.
Right.
You ask them, like, oh, I don't know yet. Like, of course you don't. You're not at that age yet. Why the fuck are you expecting us to do the same thing? And we're still in our 20s. Like,
right.
Be fucking realistic.
That's another thing that I think is very, like, embedded in our culture. Like, you have to know what you want. If you don't, like, what the fuck? But it's like, no one knows what they're doing. Everyone is living day by day, because everything that comes up is more than likely stuff you haven't dealt with. Like when you're a parent, you've never been a parent. Like how do you know what you're supposed to do? When you then have a second one, you have more of an idea, but then new challenges come because you've never been a mother or father of two. You've only had just one.
Yeah.
Or like when you go to school, you've never been in that class. Like everything is just one day at a time. New problems come. It's okay. And I promise you, the people that you think have life figured out are the ones that are the most clueless. Everyone is just trying to live one day at a time and figure it out, do the right thing and all of that. And like you said, like we're still young, we're still in our 20s. I'm gonna lean in and say this. Our culture loves to say that after a certain time, like our clock is done ticking, like, oh, you're not married yet, you don't have kids yet, like what a disappointment. Bitch, no. I know our parents like would get married at fucking like 13 years old. We're not in that world anymore. Being in your late 20s is not old. We are just starting. Most of our, like older folks, I mean, we have people in our family that have lived up to 100 years old. Yeah. We are only done with a quarter of our lives. We still have a whole 3/4. Yep. Like think of a clock. Yeah. It's only 15. We still have 30, 45, and like 0. Right. Because that irritates me. I know. The fact when people are like, it's because you're so old. Like you're already 27 and you don't know what you want to do. Like I'm only 27.
Right. It's
I'm
usually
still a
the
kid.
Ones that are like older too that tend to say that kind
it's
of
my mom. It's my mom. She's like, you're 27 and you don't know what you want to do. Okay, yeah, and what's the problem? Ma, I love you, but still I'm young. I'm still a kid. I'm basically a teenager. What you mean?
No, but really think about it. Like, so if you're coming out of high school, right, and you're barely starting in your 20s, your 20s is literally your discovery years. You're trying to get to know yourself and know what it is that you want to do with your life. So think about it this way. You're born at the age of 20, right? So right now I'm like, what, 24? In that world, I'm only 4 years old. I'm a freaking baby. I'm a kid, for sure. So it's like, how do you expect a 4-year-old to know exactly what she wants to do in a world that she's only been living in 4 years? Like, how the fuck do you expect somebody to know what they want to do in 4 years? For sure. Especially because like you're just coming out of high school and you're used to everything being laid out for you. Right. Like these are the classes you're going to, these are the grades you have to make. You just gotta graduate one year and go to the other, and then graduate high school. Like no te dan opción para escoger. It's like, tienes esto y esto y esto, hazlo. That's
right.
It.
Maybe the only options you have is like from electives, like do you want cooking, art, music, whatever your school has, but that's it. Right. And then from go to that to the other extreme of now the world is your oyster. You pick. Yeah. Like this is why y'all
now you don't even have core classes. Everything's just, you don't even have core classes or electives. Now it's just like, fuck it, do whatever the fuck you want to do.
And then don't switch too much because then you're wasting hella money and hella time. And then you do all these things and you're like, no, now I want to do this major. And come to find out all the classes you take didn't count for shit. Yeah. I mean, but that's
a different story.
College is a whole scam. But if that's what you want to do it. Yes. But it's a whole scam. Let's reel it back in. Yes.
I think that's a good note to end it on.
Yeah. So to summarize, what has kept us chasing our dream? It's not motivation. It's discipline. Because you're not always going to be motivated. But when you are motivated, get the train going. Just don't stop once that motivation stops.
Yes. And if you're having trouble building your discipline, start with habits. Your habits end up building your discipline.
Small steps, baby steps, and you'll get there.
Yeah. Or crawl if you need to at the beginning. Okay. It's okay.
It's fine. As long as you make a little movement, it's fine. Yeah. You got this, girl. You got this. Y muchas gracias por haber estado aquí con nosotros en este episodio.
And make sure you follow us on all our socials to stay up to date on the latest news and episodes. You can find us everywhere at Soul Sisters Lounge. And we'll see y'all back here in 2 weeks.
Bye.